People hope to have a great day. They hope to make it in life and get things right. But hope in itself is not a factor of production. You find land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Hope is not a self-sufficient factor or variable of production. My name is Ayojimi, and that is a way to welcome you to Early Exchange on Souk News. I have beside me Blessing, who is not just hoping, but taking action to ensure that she gets things right in life and make impact. Blessing, how are you?
I'm fine. Good morning. And thank you for joining us on Early Exchange. Now, before you take action, you need to plan, and your plan must be strategic so you know the right action to take. Early Exchange brings you insight on trending issues, and you can position yourself correctly when you have the right information. So I ask you to stay with us all the way from now until about 10 o'clock when the show will wind up, but you will get lots of information that will help you make the right move today. Let's go over now to Olaoluwa Awe, who will bring us updates on current happenings globally.
Yes, good morning, Blessing. Good morning, EY. Thank you also for joining us. Good morning. This is the Morning News Update Studio, where factual developments are served from Nigeria to Ghana, Congo, and Kenya, from the UAE to the development in Iraq. I've got you covered today. All you just need to do is stay tuned for the Morning News Updates. Welcome once again to the Morning News Update. I am Olaoluwa Awe. Starting from Nigeria, where the House of Representatives is initiating an investigation into the recent incident of contaminated fuel discovered in a MAX airplane. Tunji Olawi, a member representing Ekiti Sin Oke Iro and Irepodo Federal Constituency, raised a motion of urgent importance regarding the matter. The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, NCAA, took action on July 12, 2023 by suspending the airline's domestic operations due to the contamination of Jet A1 fuel, among other reasons. Concerned about the potential life and death implications of this situation, the House of Representatives has deemed it necessary to probe the incident. In a letter, the NCAA stated that the suspension of MAX Air was necessary due to multiple occurrences involving their Boeing B737 aircraft. The investigation aims to uncover the root causes of the contamination and ensure the safety and integrity of air travel in Nigeria. And to the upper chamber, the Nigerian Senate passed a resolution urging employers to reconsider age requirements as a condition for employment. They also directed the Ministry of Labour, Employment and Productivity and other relevant agencies to prevent public and private employers from denying job opportunities to millions of job seekers based on age. Senator Abba Moro from Benue State moved the motion, highlighting that age limits as a prerequisite for employment violates the constitutional rights to freedom from discrimination in Chapter 4, Section 42, Subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. The senator expressed concern for Nigerian graduates who face unemployment after completing their first degree, leading them to seek higher qualifications like a second or master's degree in hopes of better employment opportunities, only to be considered too old for employment solely based on their age, rendering them unemployable. This resolution aims to address the challenges faced by job seekers and promote equal employment opportunities for citizens in Nigeria. Now, the Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, MOMAN, has given more insight into the recent rise in cost of petrol in the country, saying it is due to the devaluation of the Naira and the current surge in crude oil prices. The chairman of the association, Olumide Adeosun, who made this disclosure at a media briefing recently, explained that the international price of crude oil and the exchange rate are the major factors contributing to over 80% of the cost build-up for petrol. The remaining 20% includes statutory dues, distribution cost, and margins. He further explained that the exchange rate used by NNPCL to determine its pump price in May was about 630 naira to the US dollar, while banks reported an exchange rate of approximately 650 naira on the investors and exporters window. However, as of the present time, the liquid exchange rate is close to 825 naira to the dollar, resulting in an increase of 100 naira in the cost of importing a single liter of petrol into the country. Thus, an increase in pump prices of petrol should be expected. This response comes in the wake of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited (NNPCL) increasing the pump price of petrol to about 614 naira per liter in some parts of the country. Now, away from Nigeria, Ghana has taken a significant step in the fight against HIV by launching an HIV self-testing, that's HIV-ST program. With more than 350,000 people living with HIV in Ghana, but only 71% of them being aware of their HIV status. This initiative, which offers various options, aims to empower its citizens with the ability to check their HIV status conveniently and privately at home. With the oral swab test, individuals can easily swab their upper and lower gums and then immerse the swab in a test tube solution. Within just 20 minutes, the test results are revealed, with a single line indicating a negative result and 2 lines indicating a reactive result. And if the test yields a reactive result, confirmation at a health facility is advised to ensure accuracy and proper follow-up care. Now, despite previous demonstrations leading to widespread closures and deadly clashes, Kenyans are attempting to return to normal life as shops and schools begin to reopen. However, an opposition call for more anti-government protests raises concerns about safety. The high cost of living has been a central issue, with the government accused of economic mismanagement and the opposition leader Raila Odinga rallying against an allegedly illegitimate government. The situation not only reflects a struggle for a better quality of life and political change, but also highlights the tension and challenges faced by the Kenyan people in their pursuit of a more stable and prosperous future. And the Executive Board of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has given its approval for $43 million in economic aid to the Democratic Republic of Congo. The funds are intended to support the country's political leaders in implementing their development policies, ensuring macroeconomic stability and bolstering economic recovery in the face of challenges such as high food inflation, declining oil prices, and tightening financial conditions. Unfortunately, yesterday, there was a tragic incident where the spokesperson of one of Congo's major opposition parties was killed by a gunshot, as reported by the authorities. This incident has heightened tensions in the country as it approaches its national elections scheduled for December. Away from Africa, Republican and Democratic members of the U.S. House of Representatives have introduced legislation that would authorize President Joe Biden's administration to negotiate a tax agreement with Taiwan. The bill, which was introduced by the House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCaul and top Democrat Gregory Meeks, would create a tax treaty between the United States and Taiwan that would facilitate investment, protect against tax evasion, and allow businesses in both countries avoid double taxation. The lack of a tax agreement between the United States and Taiwan has been a major obstacle to investment and trade between the two countries. Currently, Taiwanese businesses and individuals are taxed on their income by both the U.S. and Taiwanese governments, which can make it difficult and expensive for them to do business in the United States. The bill is a sign of the growing U.S. commitment to Taiwan in the face of growing Chinese threats, as China claims Taiwan as its own territory and has increased military, political, and economic pressure on the island in recent years. The tax agreement would be a significant step in strengthening the U.S.-Taiwan relationship and helping to ensure the island's continued prosperity and security. The UAE has secured the top position globally for mobile internet speed in June, according to the Speed Test Global Index published by UKIA, with a remarkable download speed of 204.24 Mbps and an upload speed of 22.72 Mbps. The Emirates also ranked second globally and first among Arab countries in fixed broadband speed, achieving a download speed of 239.2 Mbps, with Singapore leading the list at 247.29 Mbps. Furthermore, quarterly reports from UKIA highlighted Etisalat by E as the provider with the fastest median download speeds from both mobile and fixed broadband during the second quarter of year 2023. Etisalat by E and also led in median 5G download speed at 680.88 Mbps and the lowest median mobile multi-server latency at 35 ms. Now, in response to a protest at the Swedish embassy in Baghdad, Iraq has expelled the Swedish ambassador and recalled its charged affairs in Sweden. The protest was sparked by threats of burning a Quran in front of the Iraqi embassy in Stockholm, which led to tensions and violence in Iraq. The Iraqi Prime Minister suspended Ericsson's working permit in response. Both the Swedish and Finnish embassies evacuated their staff to ensure safety. The Swedish Foreign Ministry condemned the attack and emphasized the importance of protecting diplomatic missions, while the United States also condemned the violence and urged Iraq to fulfill its obligations under international law. Now, Russian President Vladimir Putin has commented on Moscow's exit from the Ukrainian Green Deal, expressing a willingness to reconsider if their demands are fully met. The deal, which allowed safe passage of cargo ships from Black Sea ports, lost significance, according to Putin, due to unmet conditions, including the withdrawal of sanctions on Russian grain and fertilizers to world markets. He accused Western countries of using the deal for political blackmail and prioritizing corporate interests over helping countries in need. The situation highlights the complexities of international agreements and the impacts they have on global trade and geopolitics, with potential repercussions for food supplies and regional tensions. Singapore is facing a political crisis with a series of impropriety charges against political leaders, an unprecedented event in the past 4 decades. Known for its low corruption levels and ranking 5th in Transparency International's Corruption Perceptions Index, critics argue whether the country has robust mechanisms to hold public office holders accountable. The recent scandal involves a senior minister roped in a corruption probe. 2 lawmakers, one of whom was considered the potential next prime minister, resigned due to extramarital affairs, raising concerns about the timing of Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong's succession plan. This revelation could impact the ruling People's Action Party (PAP) support, which has held power since 1959 and holds a significant majority in parliament. Arrest of prominent figures, including the transport minister and a billionaire hotelier, have brought transparency issues to the forefront, but the Deputy Prime Minister Lawrence Wong assures that the probe would be thorough, independent and fully disclosed. And that's the morning news update for you today. We will continue to monitor the situation and provide updates as they unfold. I am Olaoluwa. Thank you for staying with us and have a great day.
Thank you, Ola, for the news. Looking into some of the matters on the news this morning, we'll begin with the issue of the President, Bola Tinubu, approving establishment of infrastructure support fund to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. So, Yesterday we talked about the palliative program that the federal government is proposing, and now we're also seeing the establishment of infrastructure support fund, particularly for states.
Yes. Well, I think this is a step in the right direction. Like you said, yesterday it was discussed here on this table. A part of what was released by Dele Alake earlier was that, okay, the other components of the palliative measures would be reviewed.
Yes.
And I am glad the president actually, reviewed the remaining components of the palliative. Now, there are two aspects of that, of this new release that make me very happy. Number one is the fact that they want to make part of the efforts they are trying to make. They want to ensure that there is this farm to market road improvements.
And we talked about that yesterday.
Really, because the problem is that most of the agri-produce don't get, taken to the market because of poor road infrastructure.
Yes.
And apart from that, they are looking at saving a portion of the monthly distributable, which is key. Either toll, when we make money, we share revenues across the states of the Federation and the FCT. And we don't really, we weren't really paying attention to saving a portion.
Yes.
Now, to cushion the instability and the volatility of the market that is brought about by forex deregulation, we need something to be kept somewhere. And this is actually a news that delights me.
It's good to know that we're saving, because part of the argument against the removal of subsidy was, what will the money be used for? Are we going to be told stories at the end of the day? They will tell you, or the government will say, we will make more money when we remove subsidy, and that money will be channeled into infrastructure development. But it's good to note that money will be channeled into infrastructure development, and like you said, savings will be put aside. So at the end of the day, it will be a worthwhile plan. All right,
let's let you know that we are not alone on the segment this morning. As always, as we have with us Sam Olowuje, who is the Director, Research and Development, Femi Walsh Limited, owners of Sook News and Walsh Radio. Sam, good morning to you.
Good morning. My pleasure to be here.
Okay, we have the remaining parts of the palliative measures being reviewed, and we have what is called Infrastructure Support Fund by the federal government. How do you see this?
Well, it's a welcome development, but what is important is that this is a policy initiative. The implementation remains to be seen, but I think it's a welcome development. What is gratifying to note is that we're going back into a government saving culture, which was originally introduced by Kunje Wela and most of the governors during the Jonathan regime fought against those savings, and at the end of the day, we went into debt. So this is a welcome development, that some of the money will be set aside to save so that we can use them for social infrastructure. And
this essentially increases the size of the national cake. So we are now approaching the cake with a baking perspective, not just the cutting perspective. Blessing.
Yes, it's good to know that. Now, talking about money, the FIRS, which is the Federal Inland Revenue Service, says it has collected a total of 5.5 trillion naira as tax revenue for the first half of the year 2023. That's from January to June. Sure. And this is a record-breaking collection, because it has never happened before for them to achieve 5.5 trillion naira as tax revenue for first half of the year. They even surpassed the 100 by more than 100% their target. The target was actually for 5.3 trillion naira for the first half of this year, and they hit 5.5 trillion naira in collection of tax, and they say it is due to voluntary payment of tax by the taxpayers, and also the automated tax system that the FIRS has put in place. It's glad news for Nigeria, because of course the country needs revenue.
Yeah, two talking points there for me. One is the fact that the non-oil revenues actually outweighed the oil revenues. Now, we are talking about diversifying the Nigerian economy, and that is gladdening for me to know. Then the second thing there is that they said, okay, it's due to improved voluntary tax compliance. But when you realize that the process has been automated, how voluntary was it in the first place?
It's still voluntary. The process can be automated, but
you can't bypass automation. No, you really can't bypass automation.
You can still have defaulters, because if you can't bypass, then why are you having people defaulting? Why are you having people pleading for extension of the window with which you can pay your tax? So it's if it was a thing that you cannot bypass, then they would not have attributed it to voluntary payments.
Okay, I wouldn't take the shine off those who paid voluntarily, either because they couldn't bypass the automation or because they felt patriotic. Anyway, it is still a step in the right direction. You are smiling. Have I said anything offensive to you?
No, not at all. I think the collection system has improved tremendously, so it must translate into benefits for the citizens who have voluntarily contributed into that tax net. So the importance is that more revenue, more development. I think that's why I was smiling.
Okay, I like that. We know that to do most of the things we plan to do as a country, we need money. And we were talking some days ago about not necessarily taxing people more, but widening the tax net so that we can have more inclusivity in the tax regime in the country. And I think this is where we're getting this right. It's a good sign for the country and for the administration of President Tinubu.
Yes, I think the FIRS has done well in tax collection, reducing the leakages, because the automation system also ensures that it comes from the taxpayers and it goes directly to the FIRS. And this is one method I think the states can actually copy. Instead of employing third-party agents to collect tax, and you have lots of leakages of revenue. So
they should adopt the automation procedures. Okay, so away from that, the House of Reps is initiating an investigation into the recent incident of contaminated fuel discovered in a MAX airplane. You recall that some days ago, that made the news when water was found in an airborne aircraft mixed with fuel, which could have been disaster. We know that the aviation sector is very unforgiving. Every error costs lives. Apart from properties lost. So if they are now looking into it, I think this is a welcome development. I
think first of all, the investigation should go into the source of the fuel, because it could be that the airline didn't even know that the fuel was contaminated. That's on one hand. And then secondly, the risk, like you mentioned, that the airline sector could be very unforgiving when it comes to it, because when it comes to being in an aircraft, it's not like you driving or riding in a car that if you have a crash, the chances of survival is still high. But when a crash happens due to maybe engine damage because of bad fuel, it's definitely going to be very disastrous. But we're happy that at least no life was lost. And I think the investigation should go beyond one airline to other airlines, checking the source of fuel and also checking the quality of the fuel.
I think it speaks to quality control. That's what I got from what she's saying. Because, before you get airborne as an airline operator, there are procedures that are standardized to check the quality of fuel and so on and so forth. Now, when you are mid-air and you now realize the fact that you have water mixed with fuel, that speaks to a particular leakage in your quality control procedure. What do you think about that?
I think it's too early in the day to make some judgment until the investigation is conclusive. Nevertheless, I think essentially it has to do with the level of corruption in the country. So we need to identify the source of supply and how that got into the aircraft. So too early in the day, like I mentioned earlier, to make a value judgment on that, because the investigation is still ongoing.
Okay, we'll wait to see what that investigation will result in, what will be the outcome. But I think it's important that airlines do not have to wait for it to come to them before they on their own begin to do internal investigation and upgrade their quality control to be sure that the fuel that they get for their airlines are quality fuel, in order not to endanger the lives of air passengers.
Aviation is not for boys. The business itself is not for boys, because
it is capital intensive.
You are dealing with lives, a lot of lives. Yeah, it is being said that it is still the safest means of transport. Well, maybe when you look at the rates of air mishaps, you might say yes, it is the safest. But when you look at the degree of casualty that happens when the mishap, occurs, you don't want to. You really begin to question whether it is the safest or that's not the argument. It's about safety is not an independent variable. I keep saying.
Yes.
It's an interplay of several variables before you can say yes, we have a safe air. And this is where our operators have to, step up the game and measure up to international standard, because the performance of an airline is benchmarked against global standards. Are we ticking the boxes? Is there a checklist of, procedures to follow before? The other day I was flying, and when the plane took off, water was leaking from the cooling system, and I was scared for a while. They told me, okay, don't worry. After a while, it will stop. It did stop, but I was scared. Why should water be talking to me?
As I said, that aviation is very capital intensive, but it's something that if you have to invest in it, or if you have to go into having an airline, then you should do all that is necessary to ensure safety and, of course, comfort. You get into some airlines and you're wondering, is this like an upgrade of the Molue that you find on
maybe
not
maybe
by that I mean that
it's another version of Molue. I understand.
You expected more comfort, but you're not seeing that. You're not having that. So I think, of course, the comfort, the safety of passengers should be top priority. It should not be compromised at all. Moving now to labor and employment, the Nigerian Senate has passed a resolution urging employers to reconsider aid requirements as a condition for employment. Now, they've directed Ministry of Labor, Employment and Productivity and other relevant agencies to prevent public and private employers, I will tell you why I emphasize that, public and private employers from denying job opportunities to millions of job seekers based on age. Now, the reason I emphasize that, because the restriction usually comes from private firms. Sometimes they tell you not more than 27 years. You could even get 35 for public, not more than 27. And then when you look at the Nigerian system, when do people gain admissions into universities? When do they graduate? When do they serve? When do the opportunity to get that kind of job comes? And they're also asking for years of experience. So all this puts together, where does it leave us? I
was about to say that you missed a component of the requirements.
Please fill me
Applicants should not be older than 25 years of age with 15 years working experience. Did you start working at age 10?
Seriously.
Of course.
Did you ever see that in any job?
When you realize the fact that Condoleezza Rice became the Secretary of State at age 24, she bagged PhD at age 24, you might say, okay, maybe. The owner of Facebook became a CEO at age 25. So as Gopinath became a CEO at age 12, maybe they are benchmarking against that, but it is wrong. People, I do know that in Canada, age is not one of the requirements on any form you fill by the HR department.
We seem to be doing age shaming.
The assumption, with respect to the older generation, is that okay, when you come in young, you have all the energy that can be used. They assume that you make more contribution because of your age. But then there is a place of experience. But there is experience also that comes with age. I don't know. What's your take on this?
Essentially, when it comes to age, you need to go back originally to how those jobs are designed. When jobs are designed for particular roles and responsibility, at an entry-level point, you have age for entry-level. At another point, you need a work experience, maybe 10 to 15 years, for certain job roles. So age is essentially for entry-level job. So I don't think there's any problem with that. What the National Assembly is trying to do is to say that you don't need to pull people based on their age requirements. So once you have the skill set, they require educational qualification, then you should be employed. However, there are certain job levels where you have lower age people that fall into those brackets, and the other jobs where you have experienced people that have spent to 10 to 15 years based on experience. So I think it's only at the entry point that you have issue with age as a determinant for employment.
But our Constitution does not even provide for that. There is no provision for that in our Constitution, because it has been said here that you must be free from discrimination of any sort. That is our 1999 Constitution as amended. So whether entry point or not, I think it should be up to you to decide whether you want to take me or not, but do not make me feel excluded from the privilege of working because of age. I do understand you can't really bring in maybe a 60-year-old man to be lifting chairs, cables, desks.
Maybe physical fitness should be part of it, but not necessarily age.
Not age.
Well, in line with the constitutional provision, there is no discrimination, but employers have a limit to which they want to employ certain categories of persons. So it's neither here nor there. But if the National Assembly feel that there's a need for us to remove that age bracket, then good enough.
Is competence really a function of age?
No, not necessarily so.
Or capacity to perform, is it?
No, competence, capacity to perform does not really rely on age. And that's why in one of our initial engagement conversation, when you talk about age, there are people who are 50-something, 60, that are still very okay. They have the normal skill set that can drive a process. So not necessarily age. So I agree with you on that.
But how would they ensure compliance? Because if I own a company, for instance, and I want to employ somebody and I have the age bracket that I'm targeting, so you say do not discriminate based on age. I do not put it there as a requirement, but I know in the selection process, I'm actually looking at that. So I could put any reason forward and say that's the reason why you do not qualify for this job.
I think it's we will be hypocritical in that respect, if you look at it that way, because like you said, it's a way of, okay, let me just keep it to myself why I'm not taking you. Let me just not put it to you that, okay, I am not taking you because you are too old for the job. Well, it just makes the rejected one feel, not offended if you are rejected. But then it's still there. It is what it is. People still discriminate based on age.
Okay, let's move on now to crude oil matters. Here, a lot of reactions have been coming from the increase in the price of petrol. But now the Major Oil Marketers Association of Nigeria, Morman, says the recent rise in the cost of petrol is due to the devaluation of the naira and the current surge in crude oil prices. We've talked about how the difference between the naira and the dollar affects the price of goods and services in Nigeria. But what hits is crude oil, which we also get petrol from. Where is the way to go from here? I know the CBN has done some, put in some measures to try to at least increase the value of the naira against the dollar, but it's still a far journey getting to that point. Will we have any form of respite soon regarding that?
I like to assume that if we allow the market forces to play freely, we will get to that point. It won't be in the immediate because change is not an overnight process. Change is over time as against overnight. There is a joke online about people not buying full tank any longer. They can't fill up. I saw a video where someone came with a bulletproof car and still could not afford to buy a full tank to fill up his tank. Well, it is what it is. We are getting to a point where we are adjusting to the new normal. Either so, we were not really playing in the markets based on fairness from the capitalist standpoint. The government was supporting every Nigerian, at least where that is concerned. Now, that support seems withdrawn now and to be used for other things, part of what we discussed earlier. So, of course, we know that the price of fuel is affected by the price of crude in the international markets, yes, and the exchange rates. These two variables will always interact to determine what we pay until a point when we are able to produce or refine what we need locally. So we don't need to bring in, fuel from abroad. Sam.
All right. Essentially, as long as we import petroleum products, then the price issue will continue to remain with us. But for government, I think they need to improve on the enabling environment so that investors can build modular refineries, and the existing refineries, I hear they are being proposed for sale. So once we're able to achieve a high level of local production, then the issue of the dollar versus the naira will not become a major challenge. But I do know over a period of time, market forces will determine the pricing regime. It's just a question of time.
Okay.
But even when the market forces determine, if we still import, I didn't think there will be significant improvement. I think part of what the savings that the money that is saved from the removal of fuel subsidy, it should go into at least fixing one of the refineries, even if they're going to let private companies manage the other refineries, but at least government should have one, because petrol is a necessity for every Nigerian. So it should be some form of a social, there should be some form of social intervention while you want businesses or firms to handle it, because they say government is not, government has no business doing business. But for a social responsibility, government should handle one so that it will have the resources, it will have the mandate to ensure that this works and people are relieved from the stress, from the cost that comes from having fuel.
I think that is debatable, whether government should continue holding on to at least one of the refineries or not, or hand it over completely to...
Because when you hand it over, it is business.
The issue is this.
And so profits,
the government has,
to make profits will come in.
Apologies. The government has handled it for years. What do we have to show for it?
Okay, different governments have handled it.
Yeah, we have sunk money into refining the refinery. I mean, refurbishing the refineries over the years. It's going nowhere. The idea is that if we are running a capitalist economy, let us know. The business of government is to provide enabling environment for private investors to take charge. If any of those refineries were to be owned by one individual or a group of individuals, they will run it better than it is being run at the moment, because they must make profit and the most deliver returns to their shareholders.
The reason I want governments to handle one, because when you have a fully privatized sector when it comes to the refining of the fuel, it's going to be business, and profit is going to be top on the agenda. Yes, we're not going to be importing, so that will be some relief. But when you have government, it sort of puts a check. It's just like you going to the NNPC station now to buy fuel. You will get it at 617 naira. If you go to the privately owned fuel stations, that retails fuel, you will get it maybe above 617 naira. So it ensures a sort of
more players will come to the market, and when more players come to the market, monopoly is broken. When monopoly is broken, there is fair competition and price ultimately drops. Your last take on that?
I think the argument that government don't have business in business is being debated across the world. So government, there are other places where government has run refineries successfully and continue to run. I think for Nigeria, there's a new concept in international development that talked about remunicipalization of enterprise, where you give enterprises to unions to run, and that has been done in India, where the water corporation was given to union, and it's been successful even in Germany. So government has a reason for being in business, but corruption and bureaucracy over the years has killed those refineries. Therefore, if government cannot really manage those things, they should sell those assets to individuals that can manage those assets.
All right, we'll leave it there and move on to further discussions today. So coming up, we will be looking at the implications of the CBN's withdrawal of 2,000 Forex dealers' license. That will be after this break. To stay tuned. It gets more exciting on an exchange.
Thank you for staying tuned. It's still early exchange on Souk News. We move now to our next topic, which is government's revocation of the licenses of over 2,000 Bureau de Change players in the market. We don't know what roles they play in the FX market. Before the advent of this administration, they grew. I mean, BDC owners grew from 74 in 2005 to over 5,000 in 2021. Of course, we understand why that happened, because the parallel market existed at that point in time, and they were making money, they were cashing in. They said they were in business, but it was harming the national, it was harming us as a nation. People who needed legitimate foreign currencies could not get them from our banks. But when you go to the street, you find someone somewhere who can give you what the banks could not give you. And part of what President Tinubu has done since he came on board is to deregulate that market. There is nothing called parallel market anywhere. It is still the I and E window. If you say the market still exists, well, maybe not as profitable as it used to be. Now, the government has revoked the licenses of Bureau de Change operators.
Some of them.
What is the significance of this? Is this a step in the right direction? What impact will it have on the economy? That is one of the topics we're looking at today, and we have our guest ready. Listen.
Yes, we have Babajide Komolafre, who's joining us via Zoom to look at this issue. Before we go to Babajide Komolafre, the reason some of them said they were in business is because of the issue of round tripping, which the CBN has often kicked against and talked about, and there have been allegations severally about round tripping being very strong in the parallel market, where people get some operators get the dollar at very cheap rate from the commercial banks and then sell very expensively at the parallel market. But revoking the licenses of about 2,698 of Bureau de Change operators in Nigeria, and leaving just 2,991 of them. It means you see less of them on the streets and less of them.
Of course, some days ago they were crying of being excluded from the I&E window. They said they are not being allowed to participate in the new forex market. Well, nobody is stopping you. If you think it is still profitable, why not stay there? Okay, let's go over to our guest, Mr. Babajide. Please, we'd like to confirm from you if you can hear us. Let us know, Mr. Komolafe. Good morning.
I can hear you. Good morning. I can hear you.
Okay, good to know. Now, the revocation of the licenses of BDC operators in Nigeria, that is almost over 50% of them. What is the implication of this to the FX market? Is this a step in the right direction, or we're just firing blank?
Thank you very much. It is very important that we provide some background because in your introduction, there is the risk of BDCs and what they do being misunderstood and misrepresented. Bureau de Change are the people licensed. They are the licensed retail segment of the foreign exchange markets. So the word is licensed, the retail end of the foreign exchange markets. Now, so before this sector, before these BDCs were created, you understand now, the retail segment was dominated and was fully in the hands of the people we call malams, street hawkers, and the rest. And the CBN didn't have access to what is going on at that retail end. So how much dollar was changing and how it is being determined, the CBN had no report, no way to be involved or intervene. So now, in order to now, make the retail segment of the FX market, when we say retail, we're talking about small currency, $500, $200, $1,000, So in order to now bring some formalization into that retail segment, that is when the CBN decided to, issue licenses for people to render, retail. They call it across the counter retail FX business. So that's what led to the creation of the Bureau de Change segment of the FX market. Now, the parallel market or the black market still exists. They are still there. But the difference is that through the licensed BDCs, the licensed BDCs, they operate based on CBN guidelines, and they also render returns. And because due to this, through these returns they render, the CBN knows, can capture information that is going on at the retail segment of the market. And that also gives the CBN the opportunity to regulate what goes on there, sanction whoever needs to be sanctioned. And when there was a need to intervene, the licensed BDCs came very relevant. So that's the first background. The second background is what led to the BDCs being involved in selling dollars, for the CBN. In 2006 specifically, when Professor Soludo was the CBN governor, Nigeria enjoyed huge inflow of forex due to rising crude oil price. So we had robust external reserve, about $60 billion. In the official market, the Naira was appreciating. In the parallel market, the Naira was depreciating. The exchange rate was going to 125, 129, 130, 140. But in the official market, because the CBN could meet all the demands, the exchange rate was going down, 125, 120, 118. And so the CBN said, what is going on? We have enough dollars to go around. Why is the Naira depreciating in the parallel market? And then they called the BDCs to a meeting through their Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria. They called them to a meeting, and based on all the back and forth, they decided that many of the demands that is driving the exchange rates in the parallel market, they decided to bring them into the formal market through the BDCs. And what are these demands? Personal travel allowance, business travel allowance, payment of medical bills, payment of school fees, payment of mortgage. Basically, so the CBN now said, all these genuine demands will be met through the BDCs. And so they started selling dollars to the BDCs, so that they can sell to the members of the public who need, this foreign exchange dollars for the following purposes. That happened around March or April 2006. You understand now? At that time, there were just about 250 Bureau de Change, about 270 Bureau de Change. Because I reported it, I covered it. So we had just 274 BDCs. Out of that 274 BDCs, those who were really active, who were still, active in the sense that they were just about 180, because the segment was suffering. So when the CBN now started using them to sell dollars to the public, you understand now, that revived their business, and they started making more money. And within 2 months, when the CBN started that intervention, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, the parallel market and the official market exchange rate came together around October, towards the end of October 2006. And it stayed that way at 118 for a long time. Now, when a lot of people now saw, particularly people who are in power, people who are, high, top officials in the banking industry. Let me just use that word, top officials, top executives in the banking industry, and top politicians. When they saw that this BDC business has become lucrative, they now decided, to move into the business. And because they are top executives, they are top politicians occupying top political posts, they use their positions to get these BDC licenses. That was how we moved from 274 licensed BDCs to over 5,000 BDCs. So it was corruption and mismanagement on the part of those who were supposed to regulate the industry that led to 5,000 BDCs. Nigerians need to first understand that.
Okay.
Now,
having understood that now,
the reality is that the sector needs to be sanitized. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Now, so coming back to the present development, the CBN has, secretly withdraw the license of over 1,000 of them. It is necessary. In fact, the Association of Licensed Bureau de Change, because I'm emphasizing the word licensed, because there are the unlicensed one, the malam on the street. So they have an association called Association of Bureau de Change Operators of Nigeria. And I have it on good authority that they have even made a presentation to the CBN that you reduce the numbers of BDCs. We don't need all these over 5,000 BDCs because many of them came into the business because of CBN dollar sales to the BDCs. Honestly, if you ask me, Nigeria is just okay with just about 500 BDCs, max. In fact, 300 max. That's the truth. Because those who are genuinely in the business ab initio, they were not up to 400. So that is almost. So it is a necessary step to sanitize the industry. And I think that, more of those kind of sanitization is necessary in every facet of our economy. So it's a necessary step, in the right direction.
Okay, so now revoking the licenses of some bureau de change operators, like you said, is a necessary step. But you just differentiated the bureau de change operators from the forex hawkers that we get to see on the streets. So if the CBN is revoking the licenses of the bureau de change operators, should it also not be looking at forex hawkers? Because they seem to be like an offshoot of the bureau de change operators, or seem to work as an extension of them if it wants to really fight the devaluation of the naira.
Well, the reality is this: there is practically nothing the CBN can do about the currency hawkers on the streets. Maybe except if the government, through the police and the security agencies, wants to do something about it. Because, and I will say this, you see, because in informal market or parallel market exists in every facet of the economy, not just in the forex market, but their presence in other sectors are not significant because the opportunity to create that significance is not there. For several years, when before COVID, for example, before COVID, the bureau de change, if you go to buy dollar at the bureau de change, the licensed bureau de change, you will get it at a lower exchange rate than it even obtained in the banks. I remember you will get in 2019, September, April, August, BDCs will sell dollars to you at around 358. 359. At the I&E window, the dollar was trading at 261, 361, 360 point something. And that was the trend. So at that point in time, nobody talk about currency hawkers. Nobody goes to currency hawkers on the streets. Because the rate at the official market, represented by the licensed BDCs, was very good. And there was no restriction. So there's nothing the CBN can do about the currency hawkers. The only thing they can do is to make sure that, to make the official market, as free, to make it easy for people to operate in that market. Because, and I remember now that my master's degree thesis was on the parallel market. And the truth is that, and based on even World Bank studies, the parallel market in any segment of the economy is determined by the amount of restrictions in the formal market. For example, now, if you introduce restrictions in the textile industry, if you put a high levy, ban this, ban that, ban this, ban that, that item will be lucrative to smugglers. And that smuggling is illegal, of course, but it's another form of parallel market. If there's scarcity of fuel now, you suddenly see people selling fuel on the street. That is a parallel market. So we need to first understand that parallel markets, or whether we call it black markets, they exist in every segment of the economy. It is just that their significance, their dominance in any sector is determined by the amount of restriction, that is in the formal market. So what the CBN can do about these forensic orcas is to make the official market, you understand now, liberal as much as possible to accommodate as many demands as possible that are legal. Accommodate them. Let anybody that have need for forex, not for criminal activities, not for illegal activities, but for genuine, let them be able to go and get the dollar.
Okay.
Forget even about the rate. Let them be able to get it. At that point, nobody will go to currency hawkers. That's the only thing they can do.
All right, Mr. Komolafe, let me cut in there.
So that's just the subject.
All right, let me cut in there. Yes, beyond the issue of forex hawkers, which we just learned from you that one way to take them off the market is to ensure that there is easy access to FX by legitimate, players in the market. Essentially, beyond this issue of forex hawkers, what other major challenges are facing the FX market in Nigeria that have put us where we are, that we think we need to talk about? What are challenges beyond this issue of FX hawkers on the streets?
Accept reality, because there's a lot of emotions, and sentimentality about exchange rates, FX in Nigeria. We first need to accept the reality of our situation. You understand? We are sick. This economy is a sick economy, and it's not producing. So, number one, at the root of our FX problem is the fact that we import more than we export. Why do we import more than we export? Simple. The economy, there's no electricity. The infrastructure is not there. And so, production in Nigeria is very constrained. And that makes our product less competitive to that of the other countries. I've said it that to solve Nigeria's economic problem, you will start with electricity. Any policy anybody is introducing in this country that does not start and end with electricity is just crashing. You are just addressing symptoms. Many of the things we were producing in this country when I was in primary school, we are not producing them again. Why? There's no electricity. In addition to that, is the state of the roads and the railway. We don't have railway to move the goods. So that's the root. People should just first understand. So we import more than we export. And as a result of that, most of the time, our net foreign exchange inflow is always low. So we are not so. What are the major sources of forex inflow into the economy? One, the crude oil, our exports, and about over 80% of our export is from crude oil. So whatever happens to crude oil price will hit us very hard. Two, diaspora remittance. Diasporas remit about a little above $20 billion into this economy every year. Two, foreign investors, be it foreign direct investment, which has which is almost zero in Nigeria now, or foreign portfolio investors who just bring in money to come and buy shares and buy and invest in treasury bills. Those are the four major sources of foreign exchange into the country. Of these four sources, forex inflow from maybe only the remittance is doing very well now, because last year we still did about $20 billion. From foreign investors, whether foreign portfolio investors or foreign direct investors, I'm not sure we did up to $10 billion last year, if we even do up to $7 billion. Then crude oil is there. In the first quarter of this year, our net foreign exchange inflow, net means after you remove what you spend on imports from what you gain from exports. First quarter of this year was just about $7 billion. In the first quarter of 2019, before COVID, it was $17 billion. So look at the gap. So at the root of our problem is the fact that we are not exporting and we import so much. So we are not earning dollars as we need to earn dollars. So that's the root cause.
Having established that.
Look, there is nothing to a large extent that the authorities will do to solve that problem overnight. Because you can't fix electricity overnight, you can't fix rail overnight, you can't fix roads overnight. It may take 2 to 3 years to fix this one. Now, the next thing is this. Why do we have this so much challenge in IFS? The authorities don't respond. They don't want the market to operate. So much restrictions. Whenever we are having a decline in FX inflow from our major export, crude oil, most of the time, what the CBN and the authorities do is to introduce restriction. And most of this restriction is to curb demand. And it has not worked.
Okay.
Experts
so knowing that, as part of efforts to sanitize the forex market, now the CBN has revoked the licenses of over 2,000 forex dealers, which you said is a good step in the right direction. So what will be the immediate gains of this, and what should follow? What steps should follow?
Okay, I think I suspect that because I have spoken to people who are close to CBN, retired CBN directors, and the question I've put across to them is that, can the CBN bridge the gap between the parallel market and the official market without the involvement, without using BDCs? And the answer is no. So the reality is that the CBN may not want to come out and accept it, but the reality is that to achieve that exchange rate convergence that we had before COVID, the CBN will have to still rely on the licensed BDCs. But however, in order for them to do that, they need to sanitize the system by reducing the numbers, so that they can be able to have a better grid of what is going on there. So I want to believe, I'm not sure, I want to believe that what they are doing now, this withdrawal of this license, is just the first step in that direction, of going back to get these BDCs involved, in order to bridge the gap between the official market and the parallel market. I want to believe that's the first direction. That's the first step in the right direction. So what will follow, I don't know. But the reality is that, they need the CBN needs the BDCs to intervene at the retail segment of the market. That's just
okay. Let's talk about capacity building for the CBN. Like you said, at least for a while, the CBN will still need the intervention of licensed BDC operators in the country because they don't have the capacity. What steps should they be making to ensure that they boost capacity in that direction until we get to a point where we don't essentially need the intervention of licensed BDC operators again? What should the CBN do to boost capacity? What kind of capacity building should they do, essentially?
If you ask me, it's not about capacity. It's about political will. The reality is that in every sector, there's tendency for more practice. any sector of the economy, whether stock market, whether banks, anything, there will be operators who will want to circumvent the law and engage in malpractice in order to make good gains. That's normal because of human greed. But the job of the regulator is to identify those who are involved in such malpractices and sanction them appropriately. Sanction them. That is the reason why we have had a saner banking industry. Because over time, the CBN has not been reluctant in applying sanctions. You just need to look at the annual report of the banks for you to see how severe some of these sanctions can be. Now, it is the same thing you need to bring to the Bureau de Change. Don't be reluctant to apply the sanction when you catch any BDC operator circumventing the law. For me, so it's not that they don't have capacity, because now technology has even made it easier for them to monitor what is going on. They can easily monitor. They can easily, you understand now. But when you monitor and you have identified that this operator has circumvented the law, has broken the law, what did you do? What has happened is that in the past is that because that BDC, belongs to a top politician or a top executive in the banking industry, you don't want to sanction him. A BDC that belongs to a traditional ruler, that belongs to a top political office holder, you don't want to offend that fellow, so you don't want to sanction him or her. So that is what is needed. The political
let's quickly look at the access to forex by the BDCs. Some time ago, under the government, under the administration of the former CBN governor, Gordon Emefiele, the CBN restricted forex access to the Bureau de Change operators and asked them to source for forex by themselves. And so that also widens the margin in the rates from the official rate and then the rate you get at the parallel market. But we'll find that that margin is kind of closing up now. Does that mean that the Bureau de Change operators are not getting forex from the CBN?
No, as far as I know, they are not getting forex from the CBN. CBN is not saying. The CBN is not even intervening much in the ironing window because the CBN really doesn't have the dollars to also intervene that much. You understand what I'm saying now? So I don't think so. And we cannot say that the gap has closed or is closing. Because even a gap of 20 naira, even a gap of 10 naira, even a gap of 5 naira still make round tripping to be lucrative. A gap of 5 naira, even a gap of 5 naira, because 5 naira times 1 million, that's huge. So we have had it before that the parallel market rate and the official market rate converged, that the parallel market rate was even lower than the official market rate. It has happened before in this country.
Okay. We must say a very big thank you to you, Mr. Babajide Komolafe, who is the economy editor of Vanguard newspaper. It's been an educative session for us. Thank you for heeding our call and thank you for shedding light on the fact that, yes, not all BDC operators are actually not licensed. We have licensed ones and we should not look at them or their contribution in negative, lens. Blessing, you want to give your parting shot on that?
Yes, I think Babajide Komolafe did justice to that. So
Definitely.
We'll take further updates and then get to another discussion. Stay tuned.
much respect do you command when you carry the Nigerian passport? How many places has it given you access to? The Nigerian passport has become a subject of interest and curiosity, sparking discussion about the image it portrays for the nation's economy and its citizens. A recent report by the Hailing Passport Index highlights its global ranking on the positive aspects and the potential of improvements.
Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, faces a significant challenge with its passport ranking, which has been steadily declining over the past decade. According to the Hailing Passport Index, the Nigerian passport is currently considered one of the weakest in the world and ranks as the 5th worst among African countries. This is despite Nigeria's economic prominence, as the passport holds the 90th position globally and offers visa-free access to only 46 out of 227 destinations.
The ranking is just to confirm what we have always known. The ranking is expected. Yes, it is sad, it is bad. If you travel to any country, even with all your documentation, they will still subject you to scrutiny, because the level of fraud and the level of lack of integrity in the country. Yes, it's bad and it's sad, and we just hope things will turn around.
Of Africa, so for you to put them as the least, then even other African countries that are even looking up to Nigerians have their visas and the list are higher than Nigerians own. So I feel so discouraged for seeing Nigeria as the least, a country as a giant of Africa. That these people, that they are talented, and if we want to look at African country, you group Nigeria as number one because they have the business side, they have the population. So I feel so down with it. I feel so discouraged with that upgradement.
Like it's something I've gotten so accustomed to, in the sense that it's just like something that happens. Like you just get used to it happening. So because I've traveled a couple of times, and I've had to use a visa every time, and over time it's just it's something you get used to.
This development was of utmost concern to a number of our respondents, especially given the country's reputation as a giant of Africa. Many emphasized the negative impact on travel opportunities and the urgent need for the government to take action in improving and strengthening the value of the green passports.
Well, from my own point of view, I learned the passport itself isn't printed here in Nigeria. I don't know if I'm right. It isn't printed here in Nigeria. Had it been we have an agency that can be printing our passports here, then it will be cheaper. For us to get the passport will be cheaper. When you go to the official website, you will see that, okay, there, 5 years, 32 pages is maybe 25,000. But when you go to the passport office, you'll be getting it for maybe 65, 70,000. So the government, I don't know, they need to improve.
What thing our government can do is that to strengthen our economy. Let us have reason that they should give us a good reason that we don't need to travel outside to survive anymore. That we can survive here in our country by then giving us a better future and a better economy here in Nigeria. So they should give us a reason that, for example, now if people in Dubai don't have any reason to go to abroad, to go to America to survive, because they have a good economy. But here we don't have a good economy. So a Ghanaian will not come to Nigeria to come and also to survive, because they know that their own economy is better than our economy here in Nigeria.
It definitely makes it more expensive when you take into consideration visa fees. Different countries have their different fees, different amounts. It's also more stress in a sense. It's more stressful. So it definitely discourages the average person from wanting to travel, unless you really need to, unless it's okay, I have to go there, then you're willing to do all that. But yeah.
The submission from some of them underscored the need for the Nigerian government to resolve bilateral trade and relationship issues with member countries, to give it the deserved pride of place in the Committee of Nations. Image is key to international relevance, and if the green-white-green country is intentional about polishing this image, visa-free access for Nigerian travelers to other nations will be natural byproducts. Chamaka Opera, Sook News.
All right, so you watched that report. So according to the Henley Passport Index, the Nigerian passport is currently considered one of the weakest in the world and ranks as the 5th worst among African countries, despite Nigeria's economic prominence, as the passport holds the 9th position globally and offers visa-free access to only 46 out of 227 destinations. Aya, you would think that Nigerian passports are offering only visa-free access to only 46 out of 227 destinations will not be a situation.
Well, it is actually, because it's an indication of how much value is attached to the green passport, as we call it. If I hold a Japanese passport, which is the most valuable passport according to this Henley ranking, I can access 193 countries without a visa. If I do the same with the US passport, I can have access to 187 countries without anybody asking me for visa. But for the Nigerian passport, you can only access 46. Some will say it is comparative, okay, because we still rank higher than some countries, but we should not be, rejoicing.
Are you talking about some African countries?
Let me not just do naming and shaming like they say.
Oh, you.
What is wrong is what is wrong. The level of dehumanization that Nigerians face, that holders of our passport face outside the shores of this country, is unimaginable. And of course, they will say there are a number of reasons for that. There is a visa restriction that we go through here. There is fraud and scams. We are seeing because of the acts of a few unpatriotic elements in the country. And every Nigerian is regarded with some kind of suspicion out there. Well, oh, he's a Nigerian. Be careful. This and many more contribute to why we seem to rank low on the passport valuation in the world. And so we have someone with us today who will do justice to that and one other topic as part of this segment. His name is Mr. Remy, and he is a top player in the field. He has been in the field of aviation and he still runs some consulting service, and he is standing by Zoom. His name is Remy Adekola, and let me just confirm first and foremost if Mr. Remy Adekola is there. If he can hear us and he can see us clearly, then we set the tone for the discussion. Okay, so good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you for joining us, Mr. Remy Adekola. So let's look at the issues surrounding the not enough respect. Let me say that with not enough respect, because if the Nigerian passport has visa-free offers for just 46 countries, destinations out of 227, it means that it has some level of respect, but not enough compared to the US passport or the Japanese passport. So my colleague here has talked about some of the reasons as being fraudulent practices by some Nigerians, which rubs off on other Nigerians. But beyond that, what are the reasons why that Nigerian passport is not so respected globally?
Thank you very much. One of the major problems is comparison. We compare ourselves to all these advanced nations. And even in a democracy, we want to just be like them overnight. But it takes time. The Nigerian passport is issued by the Nigerian Immigration Service, and is a specification for International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, on machine-readable travel document 9303. The passport itself has gone through a lot of features. Initially, people could emboss their passport pictures on it some years back, but there are a lot of improvement now. It's now a machine-readable passport, which has enhanced features at present. Well, if you want your passport to go into other countries, you have a lot of trade balance between countries and what have you, people moving from one place to the other. Well, Singapore is #1 now. Japan was #1 before. Well, Nigerians travel a lot, no doubt about it, and they want to have access to countries as much as possible. I'm very sure that if some years back, Nigeria was given access to, as a Commonwealth country, we didn't have to have visas, but later visas started, we issued visas and what have you, even among African countries. But you know, we have bilateral agreements, we have discussions going on between governments, you know, to ensure that Nigerians are given visa free into some of these countries, even in Africa and what have you. Recently, South Africa, I think there was an agreement that we can now go to South Africa, unlike before, where we have to start getting visa, so we can get visa on arrival in South Africa now, unlike before. So we have a lot of developments within our system now. It will take some time, but if our economy improves and trade improves, and people want to even come to Nigeria, you know, like Kenya and the rest, some of these countries with tourism, they have a lot of tourists, you know, that come into their system. We don't have that, you know. We have a lot of challenges, security-wise and what have you. So there's what you call reciprocity between countries. So if you have a lot of people coming to Nigeria, you know, tourist attractions and what have you, of course, it will give that leverage for Nigerians to travel to all those other countries in order to, you know, be able to, maybe for tourism, for business, or for any other leisure and what have you.
Okay. All right, thank you for that opener, Mr. Remy. Now, let's look at the processes of passport application or renewal in Nigeria. If you take a trip to any immigration office in Nigeria, you will see a long queue of applicants, either who are there to make fresh applications or to renew their passports. And some have actually experienced what they found baffling. They were here on vacation from other parts of the world, and they were meant to go back at a particular date. But because of the bottlenecks in the renewal process of the Nigerian passport, some missed the deadlines and they could not really go back as when due. Now, this is one of the issues that they are talking about here. One of the reasons that our passport is not that respected. What can we do? You apply for passport. I'm not so sure that if you apply now, you'll get your booklets in less than 2 months at least, between 2 and 3 months. Meanwhile, in some other climes, it is not like that. What can we do as a government to ensure a streamlining of the processes of passport application, renewal, and collection of booklets?
Well, I will just give a snapshot because this question is supposed to be directed at the Immigration Service. Well, not me, but I will just say that the acting Comptroller General of the Immigration Service recently, on a sister TV program, she talked a lot about the challenges surrounding issuance of passports, and she even went ahead to give a vow that she will ensure that, you know, that she visited this passport offices all over to ensure that the officers comply. In fact, there was even like a case that was made that money was being collected in the personal account and it was pasted on the wall and what have you, and she promised that one is illegal. So the Comptroller General, the acting Comptroller General, is trying our best to ensure that all these issues are resolved. These are challenges, no doubt about it, which the immigration itself will be able to address themselves because they are the ones in operation.
Okay, so are there diplomatic efforts that Nigeria can engage in to improve bilateral relations towards increasing the acceptance of Nigerian passports by other countries?
Well, Nigeria, as we always say, is the giant of Africa. And as you lay your bed, so you lie on it. We need to improve our security, improve our economy, and ensure that we play in the international market, you know. So this just is a matter of reciprocity. For example, the American government recently gave Nigerians, you know, to have Dropbox for 5 years visas. This is a period of reciprocity. It was 2 years before, but now you can have 5 years on Dropbox, American visa, which was not the case before. The British, you can have 10 years, 5 years as you want. So it's a matter of reciprocity. So once because of our giant of Africa nature and everything, we should be sought after. I don't see any reason why, but we have our challenges and our problems, which we have to surmount for people to come here and for us to be able to go all over the world. But even irrespective of that, a lot of Nigerians still, maybe they find a way out, maybe by getting dual citizenship to ensure that they can go around the world as free people and what have you, if there are restrictions on Nigerian passports.
Okay. Away from the government, let's look at the holders of the passport themselves. You are widely traveled, and you must have seen the way Nigerians conduct themselves abroad. It is said that respect is not demanded, it is earned. You have to earn your respect. Perhaps Nigerians out there have a role also to play in earning the desired respect for our passport, in the way they conduct themselves, in the way they push our culture to the front burner. Speak to this, Mr. Remy.
Well, about that, well, Nigerians travel a lot, like I said. Hitherto, we used to have a lot of challenges whereby nationals of other countries have access to our passports. And when they catch them in illegal, nefarious activities, they will say that they are Nigerians, but they are nationals of other countries. But now there's a lot of features in the passport now that is very, very difficult to fake. Now, I remember very vividly several years ago during the Obasanjo presidency, there was a Nigerian guy that went to Singapore on football trial, and in the hotel, he was caught with drugs. Immediately, I raised the alarm that hitherto we used to go to Singapore without visa on arrival, and what was visa on arrival. And the guy, of course, was killed, was executed, because that's the law in their country. And with that, it was negative on Nigerians. So when you see Nigerians now, they will say, okay, these are drug pushers and what have you. That's the first negative trend and what have you. And they now started saying that Nigerians should now start getting visas and what have you, except for official passport. Maybe you can get visa on arrival. And secondly, if you look at it vividly, you find out that the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, they've been very, very active to ensure that they prevent these drug dealers from embarrassing Nigerians out there. We've not been seeing so much cases out there. They've been dealing with them right here in Nigeria to ensure that they don't go out to disgrace us. So that's the situation.
Taking it up from there, even when we understand that some Nigerians do not conduct themselves in a manner that speaks well about the country, but some Nigerians have also behaved very well. So what can be done to ensure that other Nigerians are not discriminated just because you're a Nigerian or you're carrying a Nigerian passport? You're not ill-treated by the mere sight of Nigerian passport, except you are found to have done something that demands that you should be arrested or deported to your country.
That is where the National Orientation Agency comes into play. They need to work a lot to ensure that they reorientate Nigerians into the ethics of being actual citizens. Because when you know you're a citizen and you have that commitment as a citizen of your country, you will not go out there to embarrass yourself. And quite interestingly, you find out that when Nigerians go out there, they behave, they are on the queue, they do everything as prescribed by law and regulations. But when they land in Nigeria, everybody becomes a big man, and they want to go around to, flare themselves over the place. So we need a reorientation to ensure that we are ambassadors of Nigeria wherever we go. And when we're ambassadors and everything, we are carrying the flag of Nigeria, we are carrying that passport. And well, I don't know, I know people say they discriminate against them, but maybe your courage and everything, sometimes these guys, they psychologically look at you and what have you. And I've not been subjected to such indignity, but some Nigerians too, for one reason or the other, they go around with what they're not supposed to carry, maybe food stuff and some of these things that are contraband, that things are not accepted. You put them in your luggage and what have you. So of course they will stop you. The machine will see it and they will stop you and they will start asking questions and what have you. And they will flag you if you are not very careful. So we need to ensure that we are citizens of Nigeria and we are ambassadors of Nigeria. And when we go out there, we should ensure that Nigeria comes first in everything that we do.
Okay, let's switch a little bit, but still about traveling, still about getting out of the country and coming back. It is being said that it's more expensive to travel to Europe or other parts of the world from Nigeria than from neighboring countries like Ghana or Cameroon. It is embarrassing to us here to realize that sometimes when people want to travel to Europe, they first fly from Nigeria to Ghana to book their, their ticket there. You begin to wonder, if we are truly the giant of Africa that we say we are, why should this be? Who did we offend? And how did we get there? That it becomes more expensive for us to move across the world from Nigeria than from our neighboring African countries. Where did you get it wrong? And what exactly did you get wrong in the first place, Mr. Remy?
Well, in answering that question, we didn't offend anybody. God has blessed us tremendously in Nigeria. But the issue is our currency, our economy. We have economic, challenges in our economy or what have you. And the airlines themselves, they operate with dollar and what have you. They go to the I&E window and get the exchange rate of 630 and everything. As of this morning, the exchange rate has gone up. So, and they buy, we buy the tickets in Naira. And they are not remitting all their money back. The CBN, there's a lot of money that is still outstanding. So the airlines will have to ensure that the tickets is raised, the prices is raised here to ensure that they meet up. By the time the CBN is going to release the dollar to them to repatriate to their home country, of course, it will have depreciated because the exchange rate will have gone up anyway. So these are the vagaries in the economy that is making the tickets to be very high in Nigeria. So until the Naira improves and it becomes a medium of exchange internationally, like before, that the Naira is respected and everything, the cost of flight tickets from Nigeria will continue to go high. So,
but some aviation stakeholders have argued that other African countries with high exchange rates and travel funds still have relatively cheaper fares compared to Nigeria. For instance, the cost of air tickets from Lagos to London on Turkish Airlines is $1,636, but from Cotonou to London on Turkish Airlines cost $469. The difference is just too much.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, the dollar, the difference in the dollar and what have you. Because we buy the ticket here in Naira. So there's nothing you can do about that, because these are economic terms and what have you. If you look at it quite seriously, you find out that the cost of ticket itself, I guess my point, has a lot of variables. When you buy your ticket in naira, you expect that you look at the rate in dollar. When you look at the rate in dollar and everything, it will be high. There's no way it will be high. When you go to Cotonou or Ghana or what have you, by the time you look at their own money to the dollar and what have you, it's not as low as ours. So the airlines will become they'll be convenient. They will have it. They'll find it convenience to be able to fly from those areas and ensure that the ticket rate is what it is. But when their money is not being repatriated, they can't repatriate their money and everything, like I told you. They can't get their money out. But through the exchange of naira to the dollar and everything, they will have to raise it in order to meet up. Because by the time their money is released to them, they are going to lose out at the end of the day, because the exchange will have gone up. But just look at the fact that immediately the naira improves. Once the naira improves, the cost of tickets will go down. It's natural that once the naira improves, the cost of tickets will go down.
Okay. Let's look at regulatory measures that are put in place to protect the consumer. We talk about consumer protection rights. Yes, pricing is just one aspect of the rights of the consumer. I mean, fair pricing that should be protected. Can you please speak to the regulatory provisions that we have that ensures that a typical aviation consumer is protected against exploitation either by local players or foreign players?
Well, consumer protection is a very big thing in aviation, and the Civil Aviation Authority, that the NCA has a Consumer Protection Directorate, and the directorate ensures that the consumers are given fair exchange at any point in time. But we have concerning tickets and what have you, that's what we are talking about. We have regulations on air transport regulations. Part 18 in the Nigerian Civil Aviation Regulations, Part 18. So that one tells you about the intervention that the CA can make to ensure that the consumers are not totally exploited. But when you leave it to market forces like it is, when you put it on market forces, there's very little the CA can do. Because if it's something that is at the vagaries of market forces, the ticket rate, the dollar rate to the naira and what have you, there's very little the CA can do. The CA cannot tell the airlines that they should not charge whatever when they look at their cost of operation, cost of fueling, cost of, for example, we recently have this issue of contamination of fueling and everything in Nigeria here. Is a negative signal even to the foreign airlines, because how can they come and fuel in Nigeria? Are you getting my point? When they know that maybe there will be contamination in the fuel and what have you. So this one will raise the premium up again for us. So that's some of the things that we have to look into. So the CA can intervene in certain circumstances, but market forces will always determine the cost of tickets.
What about the lack of competition on some flight routes? Does it impact the cost of airfares?
Well, the Federal Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace, as it's now called, have designated some of our airlines, for example, Air Peace, to go to some of these countries, India, China, and what have you. So this one will raise the premium up again for us. So that's some of the things that we have to look into. So the CA can intervene in certain circumstances, but market forces will always determine the cost of tickets.
China,
and what have you. But there is aeropolitics. You have to be very strong to be able to compete with the mega carriers, the foreign carriers. You have to be very strong. So we need a national carrier, like they always say, with less government intervention. So the recent one they did, which has not seen the light of day because the processes were not completed. If we have our own national carrier, our own Nigerian airline, of course, you compete with the foreign airlines, and then we'll be able to have our tickets in Naira. So once we buy our tickets in Naira, of course, the cost will come down. You know, nobody's looking at, yes, the airlines, because aviation is international, the airlines will always look at their cost of maintenance, which is foreign currency, because we don't have maintenance facilities there. When they have to take their planes out to maintain the planes and the other aspects of their operation, which is dollar-based, but they will still look at it that, okay, we still buy it in Naira, they're still a Nigerian airline. So since they're a Nigerian airline and everything, we buy in Naira. So that will reduce the costs of operation. When Nigeria was operating, of course, a lot of Nigerians were able to, although it was government run, and it was run in a very bad way as government agency and whatever. But if we have a Nigerian airline as Nigerian national carrier and everything, Nigerians will be able to compete with other mega carriers out there. The Ethiopian Airlines, Emirates, Qatar, government is really backing them up. And it's very difficult for any of our local airlines who are doing international operations to compete with them because of the aeropolitics of going to some of these, like the major hubs, like Heathrow, New York, Amsterdam, and so on and so forth. Dubai,
Okay.
yeah. And so on
Let's talk about the aviation taxes and charges, because airlines are in business to make profits first and foremost. And of course, the government must make them pay taxes duly as a revenue source. At the end of the day, the cost of taxes is passed to the eventual traveler. Now, what is the role of aviation taxes in Nigeria on the price of tickets for traveling? Are we overtaxing them, or we are probably not taxing them enough and they're just, exploiting Nigerians?
Well, the taxes are for specific issues. For example, the ticket system, the TSC of 5%, which is part of the tickets that you pay when you buy your ticket, and everything is incorporated into it. Of course, it's for the CAA and NAMA, AIB, now NSIB, and what have you, and NIMET, percentages, they share the percentages. It's for these agencies to regulate and to be there. They have to pay salaries. People have to inspect your aircraft and what have you. You don't expect them to be collecting money from government and everything. So they have to have IGRs and what have you. So all these taxes, landing and parking for fan and all those things. So these taxes are then fuel, this thing, all these things are there. But of course, the airlines will always complain that they are overtaxed. They always complain that they're overtaxed. But these agencies have to survive. They have to pay salaries. They have to run their systems. So these monies are needed, whether you like it or not.
So let's come to quality service. When you pay very high fares, the expectation from the customer is that at least the treatment they get while on board the flight should be commensurate to what they pay. Are we getting quality service commensurate to the fares charged?
So are you talking of international operation or domestic operation?
Both. but more about international operations or international flights?
Well, international flights are standards anyway. So you have a choice. So you have a choice of airline. If an airline is not treating you very well, you have a choice to go to another airline. So it's a matter of choice. But most of the problems, most of the complaints have been in our domestic operation in terms of delay boarding, cancelled flights, missing luggage, etc., etc. So these are issues that are germane in our system, but all over, it's not as if they don't delay flights abroad too. They delay flights for certain reasons or what have you. But ours is very rampant, and the customers, the traveling public are really complaining because the NCA recently released the number of cancelled flights and what have you, and it's astronomical for aviation operation.
All right, sir. On the very last note, for me at least, how can the aviation sector in Nigeria leverage technology to streamline operations, reduce overhead, and pass the savings to the travelers in terms of reduced price of tickets?
Well, the aviation is a technology-driven industry, no doubt about it. Like I said, everything depends on your level of operation, your area of operation, your environment, environmental factors. So once environmental factors are taken into consideration, because aviation is global, there's nothing like maybe Nigerian aviation or another aviation. Aviation is global. The standards are global standards. So the technology itself, the planes that you bring in, you have to ensure that you bring planes in that would be in line with your mode of operation, your business plan, your business model. So you don't bring a big plane when you know you cannot even have enough passengers to fill the plane, because you find out that people, they sit down and say, okay, maybe they want to go everybody's 7 o'clock flight to Abuja and whatever, and by 10 o'clock you don't see any other passenger flying in. So your type of machine, your type of aircraft has to be modeled towards your mode of operation within your local environment. Then when you want to now go international to compete with the big players, of course, you have to have a lot of money to buy the mega aircrafts and what have you to compete with them and take a lot of passengers from point A to point B.
So let's look at having a national carrier. There was a time Nigeria had its own national carrier, the Nigeria Airways, and we see other African countries having their own national carrier, for instance, Ethiopia Air. So some have the argument that if we have a national carrier, it will be a thing of pride too for Nigerians flying, and it will also help in reducing, maybe not too much, but at least reducing the rate in airfares.
Well, there's a lot of argument about the model, national carrier or flag carrier, because one way or the other, a national carrier actually carries your flag around and everything. Is a national pride, goes with your colors, is owned in Nigeria only, domestically and everything. But you also have flag carriers. You can still designate flag carriers like, Arik, yes, Airpeace. They can carry a flag and go and, go on these routes, and the Vasa routes and everything. So, but it's good to have a national carrier if that's the model, but the model has to change from Nigeria Airways. That is what the government was trying to do. The previous government was trying to do, that the process was not completed. So the model of government should not be in business. The private sector should drive, and they should have a collaboration with maybe a mega carrier and everything so that they can operate without hindrance. So the issue of flag carriers, Delta, United, and all these other, they are flag carriers, of course, but the government gives them a lot of support to ensure that they operate unhindered. So we need to support our local airlines to be able to compete with the foreign carriers. But they too, they have to look at their model and ensure that they interline with maybe other mega carriers so that, you know, the business can move on or merge if possible. If they can merge, they can become mega carriers. If they can merge their business and everything, they can merge together. And instead of a one-man show, they can still do that one and compete as flag carriers. While we have a national carrier too. And with our Naira improving and what have you, Nigerians like to travel a lot. We'll be able to move around without any hindrance.
Thank you, Mr. Adekola. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your contribution this morning. You spoke extensively about the value of the Nigerian passport and the reasons for the high cost of tickets when you want to travel from Nigeria to other parts of the world as compared to our neighbors. Thank you very much once again. We do hope you would heed our call when next. We'll take a short break now. We'll go to Austin Okere for a dose of motivation for today because we need the right dose of motivation to go ahead in life. So stay tuned and watch, and we'll be right back.
We talk about education.
A lot of times, mediocrity is the order of the day. So any excellence trounces that sector and you leapfrog to leadership. Why are there 3 W's? I mean, there may be many, but for me, these are the 3 that guided me. And the first W is what I call way power. Way power for me is how to inculcate and imbibe and explore, learn and unlearn the industry in which you are and the specific function you are in that industry. Whether you're a technology person, whether you're a finance person, whatever your entrepreneurial pursuit is, be the best in it. Show the way. Way power. Why is that key? Because a lot of times, mediocrity is the order of the day. So any excellence trounces that sector and you leapfrog to leadership. The second W is willpower. Essentially, always going the extra mile. You fall down 7 times, stand up 8. And many times people will tell you, Austin, give up this thing, you know, many people have tried it, you know, you are not suited for this. Always say, let me try one more time. Perhaps that was the secret behind the success of the electric bulb by Thomas Edison. Success is not final and failure is not fatal. It's the will to consistently plow along that counts. The third W is what I call weight power, and that speaks to patience. Patience to see the seeds you have planted grow, flourish, and become fruits, and you can reap abundantly. Most times, we rush out to eat our seeds, and as such, we deeply shortchange ourselves. So if the first W, which is way power, speaks to aptitude, which is your knowledge, the second one is attitude, and the third one is patience. In exhibiting these 3 W's for success, what I realize is I exchange affirmation for accomplishments. It's always easy when you get like, even if you are not your genuine self. I exchange security for significance. Sometimes you get locked in your comfort zone, but you need to reach out, discover new grounds, and grow. I traded short-term victory for long-term sustainability. It's not a 100-meter dash. It's always a long-distance race. The 3 Ws: willpower, and weight power.
Wow, powerful motivation from Austin Okiri talking about willpower, and weight power. I think he said something. If you fall 7 times, you should rise 8 times. Always tell yourself that there is the need for one more try. And he talked about aptitude, knowledge. And so we're looking at a place where knowledge is acquired. What is the quality of those who are transferring knowledge? Now, some parents who pride themselves in the amount of fees that they pay for their children or their words. And then when they talk amongst parents, and they tell each other, my child goes to that school, and the other one says, oh, my child goes to the other school. And that's because of the amount of money that they pay, or the perception of the school by the public. But not many get to talk about the quality of the teachers employed. They're perhaps looking at the building, the name of the school, maybe the quality of the classroom, and some other things provided in the school. But today we'll be looking at the quality of teachers. If you're a school owner, does your school have qualified teachers to teach the subjects that they are employed to teach?
It is interesting to know that when parents are making the decision to register or enroll their wards or children in school, like you said, they look at the quality of the building. And there is a fundamental assumption that if a school has enough money to build these structures and occupy this amount of space, by default, it should have enough money to hire the right teachers with the right training to teach my kids. So more often than not, you will take your child there believing that, yes, things are in good order. But when you start hearing a teacher talk about, I went to church yesterday, and this is a church-speaking school, then you know that you are in trouble.
English teacher.
You are in trouble, yeah, but for that matter. Now, beyond that, let's flip the coin. There are so many, quote and unquote, international schools in uncompleted buildings in Nigeria. Of course, I may be biased here.
It seems to be the trend. We have British,
everybody wants
American,
to be
international school.
International school.
American, Turkish, international school in Nigeria.
In Nigeria here. Now, the whole idea is that there is an emergency in our education sector. Some of us are products of public schools. I have nothing against private schools, but we schooled at the time when there was still standard in the Nigerian education system. When they say you are in senior secondary school 1, there is a measure of intelligence academic intelligence, that is, that you will have to be qualified to be called a senior. But today you have seniors who behave like juniors mentally because there is nothing there. And the quality of output is a function of the quality of input. It is garbage in, garbage out. What are we feeding our students or our children? Let us not forget that the quality of a nation's youth is a reflection of its future. This is a national emergency, and that is why it is taking the front burner today.
Yes, it is a national emergency because it is not enough for people to be, or children to be seen going to school. What are they learning? And more importantly, who are those imparting knowledge? Some time ago on the show, we looked at when it was World Youth Skills Day, training the trainers. So the trainers, who are they? It is not about the academic qualification or the certificate that they present. Do they have capacity? Do they have updated knowledge to pass on? Because you find that in our education system, it seems to be, I do not want to offend some persons of a particular faith, but you find that there's a kind of prayer, there's a part of it that says, as it was in the beginning.
So it is now, so shall it be, a world without end. Amen.
So it seems to be that way in our educational system. What was taught 20 years ago, it is still the same. Meanwhile, there have been research updating that particular area of learning. But do we have our teachers updated with the knowledge so they can pass it on? Or is it just, as I was taught, so I'm teaching others right now?
I think the definition has changed today. Who is a teacher and who is a student? In the new definition, everybody is a learner. We're all co-learners in the vineyard of knowledge because your students can teach you new things, essentially. Now, our teachers, like you said, they are not updating themselves, and the curriculum we run in our schools are, okay, and we have 40 curriculum in our schools. So there are issues, and a lot of them. And luckily for us on the show, we have standing by two people who are qualified to talk about these issues and provide a way forward. Who are they, Blessing?
Yeah, one of them is Dr. Olusoye Ajuwon, who's a lecturer, University of Lagos. And we also have Tokpe Adaramola, who is a PR practitioner and is also going to be speaking to us today. I beg your pardon. We have Sonia Ivy, who's the director schools at New Globe. So both Sonia Ivy and Olusoye Ajuwon will be talking to us on tackling the menace of unqualified teachers in schools.
Okay, let's start this way by saying a very good morning to the two of you who are with us via Zoom. Oh, good to see your faces. Could you please respond to my greetings and let me know that you can hear me clearly? Good morning once again. Good morning, Sonia.
Good morning.
Ladies first.
Good morning.
I couldn't hear that.
Good morning.
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Okay. Okay, let's begin this way. What we give is what we get. And because the quality of teaching in our schools will determine the quality of output, no wonder we have engineers who cannot engineer anything. And we have quacks, even in medical practice, with due respect to the medical schools that we have. There is so much, incursion into the education system by quacks, by those who are not qualified. It seems that people just want to teach because there is no other option. Anybody can just organize a number of kids in the neighborhood and say, I am auntie or I am uncle, as we call them in this part of the world. Where did we get it wrong? What is the state of education in our country now? I start with you, Sonia. Assess the quality of teachers that we have now as against the global best practices. Let's start with that. Sonia.
Okay, I'll start by also corroborating the fact that a lot is happening in the public school sector, and I'm also a product of the public school. So, and all of my schooling also happened in public school. So, if you look at what actually qualifies a teacher, or what we call the educators now, you would expect that those educators will be people that have a sound knowledge, like a subject matter expert in their area of influence, which is in this case education. you wouldn't expect that. This is where you will have different people from different spaces who want to come into the education space, and they are not equipped. You can't wake up and decide, oh, I want to become a medical doctor. You must go through the process. So you can't wake up to say, I want to be a banker. You must go through some process. So I think that is where we have that gap, the knowledge gap of those who qualify to be called educators and who have the right to be in front of any child. Because children, or we are all a product of some teacher, either good or bad. So everyone you see there is a product or a byproduct of what they were taught. So if you, like in our parlance, in EcoExcel, by the way, just a quick correction, I'm the director of schools for EcoExcel, a government partnership program that is run by the Lagos State government. But as where New Globe is a technical partner to Lagos State government. So we say there to say, if you know your book or if you can read, thank your teacher. But if you do not know how to read, ask your teacher why. So I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Okay, so let me ask you, Dr. Oluseyi, what are the criteria to evaluate the effectiveness of a teacher? How do you judge the competence of a teacher?
Good morning, and before I go into that, I like to say categorically that more than 90% of teachers in Nigerians are not qualified. And it is so because of, please, can you hear me loud and clear?
Yes, we can. Of course, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So, the reason why I'm saying that is it's so obvious. In Nigeria, we don't value teachers. And in an environment where you don't value teachers, you cannot get the best out of teachers. I'm saying this because I'm a teacher. I'm a trained teacher. I went to College of Education before, going back to university and study economics. I'm supposed to be a math teacher, or I'm a mathematician, apart from being an economics lecturer. But when you look at what is happening in Nigeria, you realize that the truth is this: we are not serious in this country at all. You see, it's not just employing teacher because, okay, you went to school, you read education, or you didn't study education, but you went back to go and do a diploma, a 9-month diploma degree. That's not what makes a teacher. You see, the number one problem we have in this country is that we don't value teacher. What is the morale of the people that you are calling teachers? If the morale is not impact, I'm always telling my students, we are damaged commodity. And when as a teacher you are damaged, what will you go to class to go and do? A damaged commodity will go to class, go and damage the students too. So in Nigeria, we are not serious at all. We are not serious, and what we are getting is, what we've sown. So until we become serious, maybe things will change. But as it is today, we are not serious and we cannot get any quality services from so-called teachers that we have. And if I would buttress that fact, I read one article talking about Japan, that once you put on a sticker that shows you are a teacher, even if you enter a bus, an elderly person will stand up and ask you to sit down. If you enter any shop to go and buy anything and they see that sticker that you're a teacher, it's an honor. And the way you'll be treated is with respect. I also have a case of a friend in South Africa who came into South Africa as a refugee. When he wanted to go and normalize his visa, the moment they realized that he was teaching the students, oh, you are teaching our students, that was what they used in, normalizing his visa in South Africa. But in Nigeria, it looks as if it is when you cannot get job, or the useless one are the ones going into teaching. So what do you expect?
All right,
so
Dr. Oluseyi, apologies
to
to cutting there. We have a lot to discuss and we are still on just the two of them. I quite feel the pain. I understand the point very well. It is insulting to tell teachers that their rewards are in heaven, because every other profession, takes its reward here on earth before going to heaven, and the heaven is not even part of the question now. Now, you said we're having damaged teachers and they will end up damaging the students, but others would argue that there is the place of calling. When you want to take up teaching as a profession, it is assumed that you are passionate about teaching and you owe the next generation a duty to help our youth the truth to know, regardless of the quality of treatment that you are given by the society or not. Are we saying there aren't any more true teachers who are called onto the profession by factors beyond monetary compensation? Maybe Sonia can answer that.
You didn't get the point. You didn't get the point I mentioned. It's not about the money value. I'm talking about the psychology of the people so-called teachers. Let me give you an example. I started my career at Adesoye College in Kwara State, and we used to have at least a meeting twice a week. One of the meetings is categorically on what are the challenges you are facing in class and what you can do to rectify that. So you see, everybody is free to come out and like, oh, this student is giving me problem. These are what happened and all those things. And people will be able to rub mind and tell you, okay, if you are facing these challenges, we'll be able to rub mind and like, okay, this is the best way to handle that. That's number one thing. So you see, in that case, once there are challenges, you have people you can discuss with, and you know how the problem can be solved. That's number one. Then number two, they always ensure that they train and retrain over and over and again. But these days, what do you see in Nigerian schools? People are just interested in using you, not training you. So whether you have challenges or whatever, nobody is interested. So that's what I mean by a damaged commodity. So if if I'm having financial difficulties now or whatever, or let's say my children is ill and all those things, and there's nobody to talk to, and you're having those challenges, and you come to class, and you enter class, and one student is making jest or whatever, how will you handle that kind of a child? You will just transfer the aggression in you onto the students, because that's the situation of things in the country. That's what I mean by a damaged commodity going to also damage. So it's not about, the teaching is more than just impacting knowledge. You are shaping the life of the students that are under your control. And that's the gospel truth. And that is why you see so many people so aggressive. We don't really appreciate one another. We don't value ourselves in this country. Where do you think that is coming from? That's what I mean by a damaged commodity. It's not about, if you are called and you are what's called, like for instance, I'm a teacher, not because I don't have other options, or I don't even have options to leave the country. But I tell people, God didn't make mistakes.
It's good to know that.
Yeah.
All right, now let's look at public schools. Sonia, you mentioned that you're also a product of public schools. So what were the system in place in public schools that ensured that there was standard and effective teaching? And why don't we have that in place today, not just in public schools, but in private schools?
Is it the problem?
I'm asking Sonia.
Okay.
All right. So the structures in place, like you said, thankfully, Doctor and myself were both products of the public school system, and that has worked effectively for us. So the product, the systems in place currently, yes, I want to agree that we had an history of where we were coming from, or rather a history of maybe nonchalancy and having the wrong people in the education sector. But I want to give it to the TRCN, Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, who have over time been able to bring some kind of sanity in that sector. And so we find out that for you to actually say, I started out, I wasn't, there's a difference between, okay, I agree that you could be a called teacher, but you could also find out that if you is either you were trained as a teacher initially because you also went to the university to read that as a course, or somewhere along the line, you found yourself in that space. So now finding yourself in that space, what do you do to then improve yourself? So you don't remain where you are. I remember starting out my career also as an assistant classroom teacher, and I was made to understudy. Okay, I started out. I don't want to mention my school then, but I was trained to do quite a lot of things, and in place of understudy, I then began to attend a lot of professional courses. I did my diploma, and then I improved upon myself to become who I am today. So I'm now I can say in the terms of best practices, you can, it does not matter what, if you're given a lemon, you make lemonade out of it. So we cannot say, oh, because we don't have qualified teachers, we flush all of them out. It's not going to happen, because you and I can't step into the classroom and teach all of those students. So what do? What Lagos State has actually done in that case, when DOBES, okay, so my organization New Globe, they have a co-excel in Lagos State, they have DOBES in Edo, they have Bayelsa Prime. So what they've done is that they've invited subject matters experts like New Globe to come into the country, and they are beginning to change the narrative. So we might find out that we are now beginning to change the teaching styles. We are beginning to use standardization. So we're no longer where we used to be. We're now leveraging technology to drive learning in the classrooms. So if we begin to do that, yes, it's happening in the public schools right now as I speak to you. You can find out a lot about the EcoExcel and all of these programs like I've told you about. And so bringing that same to bear in the private sector, I think the quality assurance education system, even in Lagos, OEQA, they are doing a very fantastic job. You just don't happen there. And it's not, remember that if something has been so bad for several years, it's not just going to go overnight. So in that place of not being called, you may just find out that you're not being called, but if you're passionate about what you do, you can find people who are also in that field that can direct your passion in the right place. Because I would always say as an educationist that you can't blame people when you have not trained them on what to do. So currently, we want to deliver and leverage that technology to train them en masse to ensure that at least while they are in the space, because the children will only learn if every adult in that space gets it right. So yes, I can imagine the passion, the anger of Doctor concerning all that is said. Yes, that used to be the story, but I think the narrative is also changing gradually now. And we can give it to those state governors that are doing well, and also encourage those that also need to align to ensure that every child is actually given what they ought to learn, either by every adult in that space. I think that's what I would say concerning that.
Okay.
Thank you.
It is heartwarming to know that we are changing the narratives, and state governments are taking the initiative, taking the bull by the horns to ensure that we reset that particular parameter. Okay, let's look at the quality of recruitment into the teaching workforce, either in the private sector or the public sector. There's the story of a lady that was meant to be employed by a particular school. On paper, she ticked all the boxes, well certified, went to teacher training college, got a degree in education, and she was meant to teach business studies to primary 4 students. At the interview panel, they now asked her to teach simple and compound interest. And the first question was, what is the relevance of this topic you want to teach to the future of these children? How do you make a correlation between learning simple interest and excelling in life with it in the financial sector? She could not make a connection between simple interest and the essence of the topic itself in real life scenarios. Well, I'm not proud to say this, she lost the job, and that generated a lot of debate. Now, debate is between certification and competence. What's your stand on this? Because you are qualified on paper, does it necessarily mean you are competent to deliver in the classroom? Ms. Dr. Ajuwon, let me have your take on that.
If I am going to comment on that, I will say that they have done the lady a misservice, because all they need to have done is just to connect the dots with her. she has the brain knowledge and all those things, but she cannot connect it with the real life situation. So all what she needed was just a retraining. That's all she needed. And that's the major problem we're having these days, especially in our education sector. When we go to class to teach, you just pass knowledge across without not bothering to explain to the students, the correlation between what they are teaching in class and the real life situation. So we need to connect that dot. So when I'm teaching, I'm always, economics is more of mathematics, but I try as much as possible to connect the dots with, the real life situation. I'm sure that's the mistake the lady had. He cannot connect the two dots. And all she needed was just a retraining. And, she already has all the needed knowledge. Just to connect it to the real life situation is just what is missing.
Okay, so Sonia, let's talk about curriculum design. These days when we have different kinds of school, you must have listened to us while with the introduction for this discussion that we have today different international schools. We have British American, Turkish, all kinds of international schools, and they all have different curriculums. By the design of the curriculum, certain subjects are introduced. Now, do we have teachers to fit in or to teach the subjects that we're having based on the curriculum design in Nigeria? Or should we have a uniform curriculum so that it is patterned along with the trainings that teachers in Nigeria receive so that they can effectively teach those subjects?
Yeah, to answer your question, I will just quickly bring into, just give an example. So, and I always, I just want to quickly mention that in terms of curriculum design, curriculum is evolving. The curriculum that was used to teach us, I mean, myself, several years ago, and it's not the same curriculum that is being used now. Why? Because technology is what has taken over most of the space now. I mean, in this space, you have different generations of children who are far apart. They were taught different. So you can use the way we were taught. There's this saying I can't remember who the author is, anonymous, that says that, technology will not take over teachers, but teachers who know how to use technology will be able to deliver. So in terms of curriculum design, yes, it may be that that's why we have things like homeroom teaching. So a teacher in a classroom could actually be taught, especially in the foundation years. Talk about the preschool or the early years, talk about the primary school. You will have people that are able to deliver homeroom teaching such that if you are an adult, you've been trained to deliver those content, at least at that early age, you're able to do that across board. That's the kind of thing that we do even with the quick. Sorry, I'm not here to advertise that, but I'm just saying that there are a lot of things and dynamics that has changed over time that, yes, you may not be able to deliver that content at that time. But just like Doctor said, training that teacher, that person, because that is a whole person that has plunged about 10, 12 years to arrive to where they are. So retraining them in that area of delivery would help them. But then by the time you get to the secondary school, then you can now go into more of specialization, maybe from even primary P6 or thereabout. But for us, we have been able to use standardization to leverage the technology, and so it does irrespective, and we use what we call the direct instruction. So teachers are given tablets and all of that, whereby wherever it is they find themselves, they're able to deliver the content that they find on that teacher tablet effectively, because we've also taken them through series of induction trainings and all of that. So that is part of the things that we do in order to ensure that even the curriculum, I also want to still give it to the Lagos State, and UBEC. There's a lot of people that are bodies that are involved in ensuring that, curriculum design has progressed over time. The Curriculum Services Department of Lagos State, they've also come to change the scheme of work. They've made it a bit more interactive and user-friendly. So you can go back and check some of those things. Yes, a lot is happening that is not being spoken about, but changes are happening gradually. So just to wrap that up is that, yes, you may not look like, or outwardly, the curriculum Curriculum is made by people for people. So if you bring much subject matter experts into that, they can actually, in granularity, bring those curriculum to be much more user-friendly so that whoever it is that is delivering it can deliver that content effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia, Eve, and Dr. Olusheye Ajuwon. The question used to be, what did you study? But it has changed. It is, what are you studying? Because learning, either for the teacher or for the students, is a continuous and lifelong exercise. We have a lot of resources online on YouTube and whatever social media platforms that can actually, bridge the gap and connect the dots, like Dr. Ajuwon said earlier, in the case of that particular lady who was, given an unfair treatment by his own submission. We must say a very big thank you to you, and we do hope that both the government and even teachers themselves will do what is needful to ensure that we rally support for the next generation. Let us not forget that what we give them is what we get from them.
Yes, and teachers should also it's just like you are into a kind of business, you study the market, you know who are those that are your targets in the market, and so you know what kind of products to offer them. So also you know the students that you have. So you must also adopt a method, a teaching method that will be able to catch their attention, that will enable you effectively deliver what you're supposed to teach them. Because sometimes some teachers know these things, but to effectively pour it out, deliver the teaching, is the problem. And so it's not one size fits all. There's a method you can employ for a certain class or for a certain kind of class because of the kind of students that you have. But that method may not work when you're teaching a different set of students. So knowing the psychology to employ here, it's also important.
Which is where Montessori education came into play some years back. Okay, let's go on a very short break now. And when we return, we will be looking at corporate social responsibility and its place in business growth and national development. Please stay.
Corporate social responsibility refers to a business's commitment to contribute positively to society and the environment while ensuring sustainable practices. As global challenges such as climate change, social inequality, and ethical concerns take center stage, stakeholders demand more from businesses beyond profit-making. We've gathered a diverse group of individuals to share their thoughts on how CSR impacts businesses, communities, and our shared future.
In today's business world, corporate social responsibility, CSR, has become a crucial factor for companies. It plays a significant role in shaping how the public perceives businesses worldwide. CSR is not just about philanthropy. It has evolved into an essential part of modern businesses. When companies embrace CSR, they not only make a positive impact on society and the environment, but also gain strategic advantages as they navigate the ever-changing world.
CSR is basically when companies try to engage in social projects, to give back to the society, for different reasons. But basically, that's what it is.
Well, I think every responsible corporate organization should factor in CSR as part of its social obligations, and I think that the way it is brings communities closer, makes those corporate organizations more known, and as a result, you see, you project your own, not only the image but the brand of that corporate organization.
Social corporate responsibility, which is popularly known as CSR, it's one of the business incentives which in the long run is given to business owner. It drives them to put more energy in investment. You know, there's something that is popularly referred to as foreign direct investments. This kind of investment scheme or system that enables foreigners to invest into the economic system of the economic and production market of the country. So if CSR is given to to the larger market, it also drives foreign investors to come into the economic market to invest, and this will enable for instance, our local market to compete in the global market.
Some respondents have mentioned that CSR goes beyond benefiting individual companies. It also addresses critical global issues like poverty by creating solutions to these challenges.
Consumer actually very influence. For instance, let's take, for instance, Dangote as a company, as a case study. You know, one of the CSR that is common in Dangote investments, one is rehabilitation of roads nearby to the company. So there are some local, the host community, the consumers that live in such environments, haven't seen the impact of Dangote in alleviating suffering in their environment, because when Dangote, for instance, now rehabilitate some of these roads, is a form of CSR. So it also drives consumers. They feel that Dangote feels concerned for them because they are living, their consumer that directly, the impact of Dangote will definitely influence the consumers in that area.
However, not everyone agrees that CSR directly addresses global challenges. They believe that it is used as a tool to enhance their image and reputation. Also, that companies with strong CSR commitment stand out from others because customers prefer their products or services. Meanwhile, they encourage companies to be more environmentally friendly.
Brings communities closer, makes those corporate organizations more known, and as a result, you see, you project your own, not only the image but the brand of that corporate organization.
The success of CSR in reaching its intended audience depends on how clear and genuine a company's initiatives are. Although larger corporations tend to take the lead in CSR efforts, there is a growing expectation for businesses of all sizes to give back to society. Grace Komolafe, Souk News.
That report by Grace Komolafe sets the tone for our next discussion, which is about CSR. When you hear the phrase triple bottom line, it speaks to the evolution of corporations from focusing on just profit to social impact and environmental impacts. If that sounds a bit confusing, it's just about CSR. In the late 20th century, companies began to take a look at what they can do for the society, for the resident community, as against what they are only taking. And that has implications for businesses and for national development.
It's a win-win for companies who engage in corporate social responsibility, especially when the project of that corporate social responsibility, which is called CSR, just in short, it's a win-win for both of them. The company wins, and of course, the environment in which that company is situated also wins. Now we're looking at how getting engaged in CSR benefits the business, because some businesses shy away from it. They feel like, oh, it's taken from us, but you get to understand today that it's also given to you. But first, we'll look at some countries that have actually engaged in impactful CSR practices. We have Denmark, we have Sweden, Norway, Canada, and of course, Germany. These countries have high CSR practice.
Those are actually the top 5. Okay, to take a look at CSR as a tool of business growth and national development is Mr. Tokwe Adaramola, who is a PR practitioner. And why a PR practitioner on the show today? Because essentially, CSR is a big PR tool. If you know how to use it. If you know, you know, like they say. And if you don't, well, you will
always speak well of the one who does the things.
Definitely.
So that's the simple way to put it.
He's a past chairman of Ogun State chapter of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, and he is here with us via Zoom to speak to issues around use of CSR for business growth and national development. Mr. Adaramola, if you can hear me, a very good morning for both of us here. Let's see your face and let's hear your voice. Can you hear us, sir? Okay, we are still trying to tackle network glitches there. But let's talk about this, Blessing. Before now, when companies engage in CSR, they think they thought they were doing the community a favor. But like you said, it's a win-win for both of us. Because you need a measure of goodwill from the populace.
You definitely do.
Otherwise, they can revolt against you. If they think you are a company that is on their side and not just after their purse, then it goes well to help your mission there. You get to sell more and you have patronage more. What about that?
Yes, that's very true. Now, let's take the case of the oil companies in the Niger Delta area of Nigeria. Part of the reason there have been youth restiveness is because the indigents there or the community do not perceive some of the oil companies as actually doing their corporate social responsibility. Even when some of them engage in that, it is not impactful. So you lose goodwill. The community do not see you as a project that benefits them. They want to attack you, and they will not, if it's possible for them to boycott patronage when it comes to your firm, they will do that. But when you engage in corporate social responsibility, it's just a way of selling yourself in good light. You will have referrers from people in that environment to other people talking about your firm, talking about your company, what you do. They want to identify with you, even go as far as protecting your infrastructure.
Like they say that the best PR is word of mouth. Okay,
yes.
So we have a PR expert in the house, Mr. Tokwe Adaramola, who is standing by via Zoom. Now, can you hear me? Can you please confirm if you can hear us from the studio there? Mr. Adaramola, can you? Hello, sir? Okay, we will get to that. Now, you were talking about the oil producing areas in particular and how they feel not well taken care of. If you go to the Niger Delta, you will be sad to see what they are going through. This is the source of major revenue for the country. Of course, I wouldn't say that the companies who have been exploring oil there have not been making efforts. But there are a lot of issues that have to do with, what CSR initiatives you are driving as a company there. Are you really factoring in the pain points of the communities? Or you are just sitting in one office and deciding for them that you need this? Nobody can tell me what I need. You need to engage with me on the table of dialogue so I can tell you, okay, this and this are what I need.
Okay, and it also comes from the point of not actually being intentional about CSR. Some companies just engage in CSR so that they can be seen as doing something, but not actually doing something. So it starts from engaging, like you said. You must engage the people to know what they want. And sometimes you may not be able to provide all that they want, but to be seen to take care of one aspect that really matters to them, that says a lot. And making it a continuous thing, because when some companies they start to operate in a particular area, for the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they're seen doing that. Over time, they become negligent towards their corporate social responsibility, and then they stop doing that. And that's where government comes in, making the companies alive to their corporate social responsibility. Because until they're made to comply, sometimes some of them would not live up to their obligation.
I don't really think they have to be made to comply, because for every effective CSR policy by a company, we have effective PSR policies. What do I mean? Personal social responsibilities. A company is an aggregate of individuals, of persons. So if we have people who are personally, socially responsible to the community, it won't be a case of a government having to come and enforce you to do the right thing. Because if you are not treating the environment well, when I say environment, I mean the people that you are working, that you are relating with as a business, definitely you will get what you give.
But you need to know that people do not do what is expected, they do what is inspected. And that's why sometimes a bit of force should be applied to these things by ensuring that companies are made to live their responsibility. If it was just a thing about people being personally responsible, socially responsible, then you will not have the issue of companies not even embarking on one corporate social responsibility for a long period of time. They have to wait for maybe NGOs to begin to draw their attention. So you find that a business is in a neighborhood where the roads linking that community to other parts of the area is bad.
Yeah,
maybe a bit of palliative measure on the road. They may not be able to do all of it. Or the parts where they're living, where they run their business, you have a very big problem with security. They just engage in only securing the path that is around their own business, without considering the fact that when you make the entire neighborhood, or you contribute to making the entire neighborhood secure, you too will benefit from the security.
They even have some companies have a wrong perception of what CSR is all about. I know that it's a big money gulping venture to do effective PR on a particular large scale. But then beyond going large scale, there are little things you can do. If they say little drops of water, form a mighty ocean, you don't have to go overboard. You look at the site. I mean, there should be a particular provision by the Constitution that determines how much of your profits that you must, plow back into the society as a company. It's about being responsible to the plight of them. And for even smallholder businesses, SMEs, who think, okay, we have not made enough money to go into CSR, it's not so true, because if you make 100 naira and you cannot give 1 naira back to the society, when you make 1 billion naira, you won't be able to give 1 million naira.
For some small companies, they can cash in on festivities, towards the end of the year when people are celebrating. It could be Christmas, it could be the New Year celebration. Some go as far as distributing gift items, distributing food items that will enable the residents of that environment feel the festivity. So something as little as that. It could even be sensitization. Some may not have to give gifts, but they can sensitize the residents of their location on certain matters. It could be health related. There could be an outbreak of a disease. Remember during the COVID-19 outbreak and the COVID-19 pandemic, what some companies were doing, distributing sanitizers. These were efforts at showing that we care. And some of them had the name of the company that was producing or even buying the sanitizers and giving to the residents. So it's a way of advertising yourself.
You're right. Okay, Mr. Tokwe Aderamola, I just like to confirm first before I go again. Can you hear us now? Can you speak to us? So we have just Mr. Aderamola.
I'm hearing you loud. It appears I'm muted at your end.
Okay. We can hear you now, sir. Okay. Now let's talk about, we have just 10 minutes or thereabout to talk about this, which is a pain for me. Now, how can businesses integrate CSR initiatives into their core operations to the larger good of the society?
Well, like you have rightly analyzed, the concept of corporate social responsibility is not so much of a contemporary concept. It's in ancient Europe, where plantation farmers had to pay what was called protection fees to landowners in order for them to be able to have each free harvest and rank-up free sales. It also speaks basically to the social responsiveness that is expected of businesses to their social environment, to the environment in which they operate. And good enough, the case of oil and gas are doing corporate social responsibility. But as time goes on, it has become quite imperative for all companies, irrespective of your production line, to be involved in CSR. And the necessity for CSR is informed by, one, the growing need of companies to respond to the environment in order to ensure stability in sales as well as profitability. You will also know that in contemporary times, it is also a thing of ethics and compliance to corporate governance for any company to embark on CSR. So that those days when companies can make all the profits without having to consider the environment in which they operate. And when they do this, there are several benefits that accrues to the company. One, it's more profitability because there will be peace and order in the environment in which you operate, translating into the peace of mind, for you to.
Okay, we seem to have a bit of connection challenge there. So we'll have to continue the conversation again when that is restored. But let's look at more benefits that could come to the business when they engage in corporate social responsibility, besides goodwill.
Okay. Business is about buying what we call share of mind. Perception is stronger than reality sometimes, like they say. If you work in an environment, if you run your business in an environment, and you are not involved in what matters to them, their pain is not your pain, then their gain will never be your gain. Yeah, goodwill is a broad term, but the whole idea is every smart business person knows that when you do well for the community you are playing in, you are buying enough share of their minds. And when they talk well about you, about your practices, they can protect you in times of crisis. Okay, the last NSAS, we witnessed it. Okay, we learned Mr. Tokwe is back. Can you hear us, sir?
Yes.
Okay, my partner wants to ask you a question before you went.
I'm with you.
Now.
All right, so
I'm with you.
What are the other benefits that a business can get from getting engaged in corporate social responsibility?
I earlier told you that there is higher profitability. Secondly, there is more acceptance of the corporate image of such organization from the environment in which it operates, and realizing that you cannot produce or thrive in an environment that is hostile to you. The third one is that you are seen as a company that conforms to high ethical standards. Part of the requirements that some rating agencies want to see as indices for compliance is to see the extent to which you are committed to social responsibility, to CSR. And so any company that wants to play on a global scale or has an aspiration to be rated as a global entity must conform to corporate social responsibility requirements. In place, even when it comes to
oh, there. Okay, we still have the network glitch, and our time is almost gone. I do hope you can come back and so we can ask you just one more question as we wrap. We know that society moves forward when there is a handshake between private players and the government and even the people. The government will do its own part by providing infrastructure, but no single government can provide all the infrastructure needed for development of the society. At the level of the community, people can rally around and do what we call self-help. They come together, contribute money, and erect bridges, local ones, and so on and so forth. But then companies and corporations also come together to play a role. At some point, we need to devise a particular system. Okay, you're back, Mr. Daramola, so I learned. Let's just have one more question for you before we go. what are the key challenges that businesses are facing in, deploying their CSR initiatives? Because some say they want to help, but they are being, hampered by some factors and challenges. What challenges are they facing in implementing CSR policies? If there are
One, the economic situation in the country, i.e. the inconvivial business environment that companies operate. There are some companies that today, even to survive, is a very big challenge to them. So seeding out a portion of their budget towards CSR is an uphill task. The second one has to do with security challenges that we are facing in the country today. There are many companies, take for instance in the Niger Delta, some of their staff were kidnapped in the course of wanting to respond to community needs. And some, we've had instances where attempt by a corporate entity to build road, also led to a backlash for which the company, had to quickly make a retract. So all these are very great challenges that are facing companies today and inhibiting them from putting in place an effective CSR. So you have the angle of government,
in 1 minute,
you have the
can you
angle
tell
of
us
economic challenges.
Hello. In 1 minute, quickly, can you tell us the ways that corporate social responsibility can be measured, the effectiveness? We mentioned the names of some countries that have highly impactful CSR. So how do we measure? How do we measure effectiveness of a company's CSR?
Okay, I think it's a convenient point to call it a wrap on that segment. It's just a pity that network glitches did not allow us to ask
at that point.
a lot of questions that I would have loved to ask. But all the same, we would like to say a very big thank you to you, Mr. Adara Mola, for coming on the show today. Surely you will be back here either live or via Zoom, and we will revisit maybe not CSR, but something that has to do with business growth and national development. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think government can also incentivize companies by maybe giving a bit of tax relief to companies that engage in corporate social responsibility to encourage them. And that's the show today. Thank you for your time. I am Blessing Aiche.
And I am Ayo Jimmy. We'll see you on Monday by God's grace, 7 a.m. Nigerian time. Have a profitable weekend.
Business Insight is next with Olaoluwa.